That's right. I'm feeling you beginning to hum this room. Warm it up. We need to warm it up a little bit more. Let's try it again. A little bit more breath, please. Now we're going to sing a lot of songs that you may have, you know the words to, and then there will be some that you've never heard before. But I promise you, you've been singing these words for lifetimes. So I know you know them. Shana Tova, everyone. Let's do it together. Everyone, you with me? This is the sound of one voice, one spirit, one voice, the sound of one who makes a choice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice. Yes, you sound beautiful. Naomi, you want to join me? Let's get more voices. This is the sound of voices too. The sound of me singing with you, helping each other to make it through. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices too. Beautiful. You sound beautiful. Ben, come sing with us. Come sing with us. You ready, everyone? More harmonies. This is the sound of voices 3. Yeah. Sing together in harmony, surrendering to the mystery. This is the sound of voices 3. Voices 3. Yes, this is the sound of all of us. Sit up tall. Let's do it. Let's do it. Here we go. This is the sound of all of us. Singing with love and with to trust. Leave the rest behind. It will turn to dust. This is the sound of all of us. This is the sound of all of us. Boy, you sound beautiful. Now, here's the trick. You gotta sing in such a way that you can hear someone else in this room. Okay? Now, it's a special kind of musician trick, and each one of us, well, we're all here musicians. So that's what I want you to do. I want you to sing in a way that you can hear someone across the room, or at least a few seats down. Are you ready? This is the sound of one voice. That's your voice. This is your voice. You ready? This is the sound of one voice. One people, one voice. A song for every one of us. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of Yes, you sound.
Welcome back to Yom Kippur. Maybe in your mouth the last flavor of whatever you ate before this ritual fast. Can you still taste it? Maybe in your heart the last rumble of preparation for this annual Day of Atonement. Welcome back and welcome folks here with us in Tribeca, friends joining us at home, online. We invite you to close your eyes for just a moment as everybody's coming in. Ground yourself in this temple. We invite those of you joining us online to put in the comments where you are coming from so we can see and welcome you all from all corners of the earth. And pilgrims here in New York City, sit comfortably. Welcome back to this ritual. We'll be here, like Shira said, for the next 25 hours for a hunger strike of choice, for a ritual of reflection. This is not a performance. You're on stage. We're here to take our lives a little more seriously and begin this year, each of us alone and all of us together. It's a pleasure and an honor to welcome familiar and new friends. And we want to begin, as we do, by lighting the candles. So friends at home, if you have actual candles, in a moment you can light those. And here we have electric ones. And we're going to begin with a mother's prayer for peace, which is a tradition we've inherited from friends in Jerusalem, a prayer written by a Muslim mother, a Jewish mother, and a Christian mother, all leaders of faith, praying for peace there, here, and everywhere. We invited a new friend, Judy Maltz, to be here tonight and help us light the candles. Judy, are you here? Well, there's Judy. So come join us here on stage. Judy is a correspondent for Haaretz and has spent a lot of time on the front lines covering protests and news and all the ways of life, and is now in our area. So welcome with your family right here to that side of the stage. Shana Tova and welcome, Judy. Thanks for being here.
We have greetings from D.C.
Right
and
there.
Chicago and many, many places, including Brooklyn.
Great. So if you're at home, we hope you're sitting comfortably and stay away from the fridge. Turn those lights on. Naomi is going to lead us with a prayer, the blessing, in just a moment, which is her mother's tune. And we invited Judy to read the English version of this mother's prayer for peace. So will you will, and then light the candles. Please read.
God of life, who heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds, may it be your will to hear the prayer of mothers, for you did not create us to kill each other, not to live in fear, anger of hatred in your world, but rather you have created us so we can grant permission to one another to sanctify your name of life, your name of peace in this world. For these things I weep. My eye runs down with water, for our children crying at nights, for parents holding their children with despair and darkness in their hearts, for a gate that is closing and who will open it while day has not yet dawned. And with my tears and prayers which I pray, and with the tears of all women who deeply feel the pain of these difficult days, I raise my hands to you. Please, God, have mercy on us. Hear our voice that we shall not despair, that we shall see life in each other, that we shall have mercy for each other, that we shall have pity on each other, that we shall hope for each other, and we shall write our lives in the book of life. For your sake, God of life, let us choose life. For you are peace, your world is peace, and all that is yours is peace. And so shall be your will, and let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Okay. Sure.
Let's draw on the light together. Baruch atah HAVAYA Eloheinu ruach haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel yom tov.
Thank you, Judy. Shana Tova. You can read from those stairs over there.
Awaken my soul, awaken my soul. Awaken my soul, awaken my soul. Awaken my soul, awaken my soul. Awaken my soul, awaken my soul.
Some of us might be new to Yom Kippur, and if so, welcome. For many of us, these might be familiar tropes. And yet every year when we meet here, we are different. The cells in our body are not the ones we lived a year ago. And even though some of our regrets and wishes might be the same, yet we are different. Yom Kippur is a day of atonement, a day of reflection, a day in which we focus on what will it look like if we did better, if we were better at being. Where have we gone wrong? Where have we individually and collectively missed the mark? And so we begin tonight this opportunity to go deeper into our Holy of Holies and ask big questions of ourselves. And this night of Yom Kippur is Kol Nidrei, the ceremony we will recite in a moment, in which we take responsibility for the words of our mouths. With our words, we build worlds. We can build worlds of blessing, and with our words, we can build worlds of harm. So we're going to invite ourselves right now, whether you're here with us in person, so many of us, or whether you're at home, to devote the next few minutes to asking yourselves and talking with each other, reflecting perhaps on just one way that this past year you built a world that could be better. What is one word, one story, one message you've told yourself or someone else that instead of building, diminished? self-messaging of I'm not good enough, critique that could have been kinder. We're going to annul our vows. Vows are words, and words have power. So go inside for a moment and reflect. What's one way in speaking, in writing, in texting, even an emoji that was inappropriate can count. But take this seriously. What is one word, one story, one message that you told yourself this past year that you are ready to release? Let's turn to each other for just a couple of minutes. And folks online, feel free to put it in the comments, or just journal or put it in your heart, or talk with each other. We will resume in a couple of minutes. Okay, come back. Enough. Everybody
Awaken
right?
my soul, awaken my soul. Awaken my soul, awaken my soul.
Yeah.
Awaken my soul, awaken my soul.
Kol Nidrei is not just a moment to vent our angst about the things we say and regret. It is also that. But it is a legalistic ritual that is recited 3 times, and we get to be each other's tribunal, a Beit Din. And we get to annul the vows that we have made this past year. This ritual has gravitas. So I invite us to really think about the vows we've made this past year, the words we've said that we regret, the promises we've made that we've not kept, the ways we said that we will show up but did not. And not with judgment, but with tenderness, with honesty, humility, and courage to release. So we can begin this fast by letting go, by making room for who we want to be again. We shall recite the Kol Nidrei 3 times. The first time, Jeremy will lead us in the haunting melody that has become synonymous with what this ritual invites us to. And then a duet with Marcus and Ben will lead us into the words in Aramaic, and then we're going to sing this together. So we invite us to really think and feel what this Kol Nidrei this year is about. What's different? We're going to open the Ark in a moment. And as we open the Ark, we're opening our hearts. And we're going to invite some of the friends in our community who are from our current Generate cohort. For those of you who don't know, Generate is our group of people who don't always love the term elders, but are not just getting older, but becoming elders. And spending over a year thinking about what does it look like to create a rite of passage into being leaders and elders in our community. So some of the folks from the 3rd cohort are here tonight alongside some of the leaders and teachers of this group. And I invite you, Generate 3, including Stefan and Janie, Ben is here on stage with us, to join me up here on the bima, oh here you are, to help open the Ark, and then for us to stand as we hand the Torah scroll from the Generate groups to each other, and to imagine you are holding them too. So we're going to hear the violin, then we're going to sing it in English, and then Ben and Marcus will lead us in the Aramaic. Hello, Generate folks. Hey, Larry. Thank you for being here. Shana Tova. Stefan, why don't you take the Torah? And I invite you to then step in front of the bima and then hold the Torah and just hand it to each other, facing us. And take your time. There's plenty of time. Thank you for representing the Generate group. There's many more watching us at home, I know. Great. So Stefan, lead us down.
של מעלה וישיבה של מטה על דעת המקום ועל דעת הקהל להתפלל עם העבריינים. together. All vows, oaths, and promises which we made to our deepest source and to others, but were not able to fulfill. From last Yom Kippur to this Yom Kippur, may all these vows, oaths, and promises be annulled. May they be voided and of no effect. May we be forgiven for them and released from them. May these vows not be considered vows. These oaths not be considered oaths. And these promises not be considered promises.
Kol Nidrei V'Yesarei V'Charamei V'Konamei V'Chinuyei מיום כיפורים שעבר עד יום כיפורים זה עלינו שביטין ותהילים
deep breath. And on your next out breath, leave the rest behind. It will turn to dust, and let it go.
Baruch atah HAVAYA Eloheinu ruach haolam שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. ברוך אתה הוויה אלוהינו רוח העולם שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. יאי ניי 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 יאי ניי ניי
Let's have a seat anew. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, you probably caught, hi. We have a theme this year that we're really leaning into. It's HAVAYA. Did you catch that? HAVAYA. And we're just getting started with this. We're just getting started with the sound, the softness that is HAVAYA. HAVAYA. We're translating it as Everpresence. Everpresence. Can you imagine Everpresence replacing Lordship? HAVAYA, Everpresence, replacing Adonai, Lord. We won't be pronouncing Adonai tonight. We are not pronouncing Adonai tomorrow. Adonai, a word that so many of us grew up with as a translation for God. It means Lord. We won't be pronouncing that this year. Can you imagine replacing Lord with Everpresence? Yes. Yes, you can imagine. Yes, you can imagine. And your imagination shall be your primary tool this year. A tool that will expand your mind. HAVAYA, this sound that's just made solely of breath, with all of its soft edges. You see that cue? Everybody starts breathing. Yes, that's what I mean. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. HAVAYA, try it. HAVAYA. No Adonai consonant corners to bump up against. No lordship, patriarchal stumbling blocks to bump into, to trip over. Just this open pathway. HAVAYA, this open pathway, open as the sky above, between me and you, between you and you, between me and you and infinity Everpresence. HAVAYA, how will this change your prayers this year? Prayer after prayer. You know, to be clear, we are a laboratory, but this is not an innovation. We are not innovating by bringing HAVAYA into our consciousness. We are excavating. This term, HAVAYA, it is the very breath that you breathe every day. It's deep inside you. This is inside your well. I am literally watching all of you breathe right now. I see so many of you, and it's absolutely beautiful. And I love when it turns to laughter, and I love even more when it turns into song and tears. So listen for it tonight. Listen for it in the words that we sing. Let it wash over us like gentle waves of ocean. HAVAYA, all breath will be like a movement of energy. And that's why we're here. We're here to move and shift and change. We're here to go to a place that we have never been before. So in a moment, I have the distinct honor of calling us to prayer. I'm going to pronounce HAVAYA several times. I'm just getting started with this. We're going to breathe together like we've never breathed before. So, like I said, HAVAYA lives deep within us, so let it just start to move your body a little bit. Let it start to just shake your hips a little bit. And yes, Stefan, I see you. And we will just let HAVAYA, breath, help us to rise. So if you rise, and it is your practice to rise in spirit, that's how I invite you to rise. And if it is your practice to rise in body, all the way like Jacob's ladder between sky and earth, now is when we rise. Now remember, HAVAYA, breath, music and singing, it's really for no other purpose than to help you breathe. So sing, 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 and then breathe. חי וקיים תמיד, חי, חי וקיים תמיד, חי וקיים תמיד, אל חי, חי וקיים תמיד,
The endless process of creation. Day becomes night. Light rolls from
חי
darkness.
וקיים תמיד,
Dawn rises again and again. Each change a manifestation of the soul of the universe.
חי וקיים תמיד, חי וקיים תמיד, חי וקיים, וקיים תמיד, חי וקיים תמיד, חי וקיים. Be guided now, as always, by living in eternal mystery.
is Everpresence.
HAVAYA, HAVAYA, Baruch atah.
This is my choice.
HAVAYA,
My choice every day.
הבוחר בנו
Love is my choice every day.
With words, we build worlds. And I'm noticing that some of us who are here with us for the first time this High Holy season and just hearing Shira's powerful invocation of reimagining the divine name. And maybe you never thought much about Adonai, but you're like, no, really? That's the only thing I know from Hebrew school. Well, yes, friends, we are a laboratory and we are trying out new ways to speak the words that build the worlds that we want to inhabit. And so, yes, we are experimenting, and here comes the one line that chances are many of us know that we reserve for moments of crisis, or when we wake up in the morning, or when we go to bed, or when we gather together. So the Shema, the call to listen, includes that name, that word that builds a world. And we will replace again today, but give you the option of sticking to the comfort soul food that you know, or try this new way of breathing words that build a new world of expansiveness and hope. So we'll listen together to this Shema. And we want to show you on the screen what the old school Shema looks like. There it is. There's Yud Hey Vav Hey, the four-letter holy word, which is the name of God that we inherited from our ancestors. And in the transliteration, Adonai Echad. But here's our flip. Scrambling the letters, encouraged, excavating, inspired by medieval poets and mystics. Just changing the letters around, that it's not hierarchy-based, but existence. On the plane of ever-presence, HAVAYA, whatever feels appropriate to you tonight, we invite you to close your eyes and listen and breathe and use our voices somehow to be, even temporarily, one.
Baruch Shem Kivod Malchut Leolam Vaed Baruch Shem Kivod Malchut Leolam Vaed
בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך ואהבת את הוויה אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך ושמרתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם מאוד על ידיך והיו תותפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך
השכיבנו, הוויה אלוהינו לשלום, והעמידנו לחיים.
As soon as we end Yom Kippur, we will build a sukkah, a temporary shelter, a symbol of impermanence, and yet a week-long home full of hope for harvests at this fall season, an opportunity to come together and celebrate abundance, and yet it's temporary. The sukkah we build at the end of Yom Kippur into the holiday of Sukkot is a sukkah shalom, a tabernacle, a shelter, a roof of temporary peace. Impermanence is another way to say ever-presence. So on this night, tonight, we pray that every night when we put down our heads, if we should be so lucky to have a bed and a roof over our head, let everybody on this planet be so lucky to have a roof over their head and the ability to sleep, knowing that it's impermanent. But while it's here, we are here too. Let there be a roof of peace over our head. Let there be Sukkot Shalom over everybody, every being on this planet, on this and every night. May we fall asleep with ease and wake up ready.
ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך ופרוס עלינו
ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך למען שמך והגר בעדינו, ועשה מעלינו אויב דבר וחרב ורעב ויגון והסר שטן מלפנינו ומאחרינו. ברוך אתה הוויה הפועל סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ועל ירושלים ועל העולם.
Another invitation to rise in spirit, rise in body. Remember, you have a body. Let HAVAYA flow through. Prayers on Yom Kippur are somewhat linear, somewhat labyrinth. So here we find ourselves in this place in the map of the moment to be with yourself. You to you, me to me. I lift my tali over my head to take myself into as private of a place as I can go. To express where do I meet HAVAYA? Where does my little human self meet you? I'll call these words to you. Please sing them back out. Let every note come out. Shiviti,
Shiviti,
Shiviti, HAVAYA, lenegdi.
מסוד חכמים ונבונים ומלמד דת מבינים. אפתחה פי בתפילה ובתחנונים, לכלות ולחנן פני רוח מלכי המלכים ואדוני אדונים.
Here in the axis of Everpresence, we begin by calling in our ancestors. We name here Avraham, Yitzchak, Rachel, Zilpa, Bilha, Leah. Name your ancestors. In the presence of HAVAYA, all of time is now. This is a call in to connect.
Baruch atah Havaya Eloheinu Ve'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Elohei Bilha Ve'Elohei Zilpa האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. Awaken my soul, awaken my soul. Awaken my soul. Awaken my soul.
We cause harm, we get hurt, we are broken, and so we learn.
We hurt our loved ones when we don't know. We wound the earth, and so we grow.
Awaken my soul, awaken my soul. Awaken. Awaken my soul, awaken my soul.
We own up, 'cause we are strong and flexible. This road is long.
And every time we fall again, we remind ourselves that we can mend. Awaken my soul, yeah. Awaken my soul. Awaken my soul. Awaken my soul.
עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה הוויה. מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. Connect with life force. Beyond all boundaries, connect. I am the energy that flows through the universe. Connect, connect in. אתה גיבור לעולם הוויה, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטעם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי כל חי ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מלחמות חפר גבורות זוכר יציריו לחיים ברחמים, ונאמן אתה להחיות כל החי מתים, ברוך אתה הוויה. מחיי כל החי.
I invite us to find our hearts, perhaps with our right hand and with our thoughts, and know that in our hearts are contained so many of our feelings and emotions. And tonight, in this vidui, in this confession, some of our regrets. We will sing this alphabetical list, which is only a suggestion. We each know what we are holding inside our heart, and we and only we know, in the presence of the infinite, what we want to own up tonight, and not to hit our hearts, but gently hold and gently own, commit to change.
אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, תבוא לפניך תפילתנו, שאין אנחנו עוזב פנים וכשאוהב לא לפניך הוויה. צדיקים אנחנו ולא חטאנו, אבל אנחנו ואבותינו אמותינו
We acted from aggression.
Bagadnu.
We betrayed each other's humanity.
Gazalnu.
We gave too little.
Dibarnu dofi.
We denied difficult truths.
We took too much space. We viciously gossiped. We zoned out. We chose comfort too often. We took for granted. Ya'atz Nora.
we yielded to precedent.
Kizavnu.
We closed our minds.
Latznu.
We lied.
Maradnu.
We made biased decisions.
Niatznu.
We neglected.
We stayed silent. We engaged in environmental destruction. We privileged the patriarchy. We stood by when others were objectified. We kept too much for ourselves.
We remained apathetic. We showed children we cared less for them than for guns. We thought of ourselves too much. We thought of ourselves not enough. We took too long to rise up and protest.
Awaken our souls, awaken our souls. With open hearts, we turn to you, oh you universe.
me see this change through.
בספר חיים ברכה ושלום ופרנסה טובה. יין, 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 ניזכר ונחתם בפניך, אנחנו וכל עמך בית ישראל, לחיים טובים, לחיים טובים, לחיים טובים ולשלום.
So Leonard Cohen, 50 years ago, 1973, had a bit of a breakdown. He was 39 years old, living in Greece with his wife and firstborn son, 1 year old, but the marriage was on the rocks, and he was not feeling the music anymore. He was having a crisis. Out of that crack, some light would eventually come in. But it would take him a while to find his path again, to become the legend that he would become. So why am I telling you the story tonight? It has to do with Yom Kippur. A Yom Kippur that had a major shift on Cohen's life and in some ways on Israel and the entire Middle East and world Jewry, and in some ways on the world. Ultimately, the story about Cohen is a story about what it means to redefine one's sense of trust in the world. That's what I want to invite us to think about tonight. In who, in what do you trust? Think about that for just a moment. How can we restore trust when all around us so much is uncertain and what were once safe bets are now so often question marks? What, who do we trust? But first, let's get back to the Leonard Cohen story. So it's October 1973. He gets on a plane to Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv, October 1973. Israel is in the middle of the Yom Kippur War. In the middle of Yom Kippur, just like now, the war with Egypt and Israel began unexpected. If any of you watched the Golda movie with Helen Mirren, you know it was a devastating drama. I was 4 years old in 1973, and I remember sitting in our sukkah in Bnei Brak outside Tel Aviv when sirens began wailing and being whisked by my mother to the nearby shelter at a neighbor's home, a bomb shelter, and asking her, but isn't the sukkah supposed to be sukkah shalom, a shelter of peace? Why are we going to a shelter? I don't remember her answer, just come on already. My father was already on the front lines. I remember later helping my brothers paint the car headlights with blue against air raids. When Cohen arrives in Tel Aviv in 73, he immediately meets some other musicians and volunteers to go down to the front. He goes down to the Suez, the Sinai, and he begins to play for soldiers. He meets a lot of trauma, a lot of casualties, a lot of young men and women in shock. Sometimes he sings for 10, sometimes for hundreds. He's got a sleeping bag. And in the middle of all this, he thinks a lot, he writes a lot, and he begins working on a new song there on the dunes at night. One night he tries this new song on a bunch of soldiers in an Air Force base. And some of them still remember that experience today because he not only sings to them, he sings to them about them. That new song that he came up with has a new verse that he had just written. It goes like this. I went down to the desert to help my brothers fight. I knew that they weren't wrong. I knew that they weren't right. But bones must stand up straight and walk, and blood must move around, and men go making ugly lines across the holy ground. He'll keep working on the song for a few days more. And through working on this song, he's going to work out some big questions for him. Questions about his life and about love and marriage. Questions about what does it mean to be a Jew for him, coming from Montreal, finding himself with all these Israeli soldiers. How come he feels so much part of these people then? Something about him feels at home, feels alive in the middle of this battlefield. He writes a lot about this in his journal. And then something happens, which he also documents in his journal. A helicopter lands. In the great wind, soldiers rush to unload it. It is filled with wounded men. I see the bandages and I stop myself from crying. These are young Jews dying. Then someone tells me that these are Egyptian wounded. My relief amazes me. I hate this. I hate my relief. This cannot be forgiven. This is blood on your hands. Shortly afterwards, Cohen goes back to Greece. He tries to fix his marriage. It won't. But he does get back into the studio. And once again, he makes music. Shortly afterwards, the song he wrote in the Sinai will be released in an album called New Skin for the Old Ceremony, that I'm sure some of you have the original. Michael? You probably do. It also includes Who by Fire, based on the Yom Kippur prayer we will sing here together tomorrow. And the song that was born in the Sinai is called Lover, Lover, Lover. I'm sure some of you know it. It would become a great hit, but it would not contain the last verse that we just read. He took that verse out. He took that verse out because he didn't feel like he can own up to this notion of being on the side of just his people. And when he sings it live for the first time in 1976, he frames it as a song that he wants to dedicate to the Egyptian and the Israeli soldiers. In his fascinating book, Who by Fire, by Canadian-Israeli journalist Mati Friedman, he writes about discovering that missing verse and many of Cohen's thoughts in his journal. Incidentally, Tuesday at 6 p.m., Mati Friedman will be interviewed on jta.org about this book and about this moment marking the 50 years since the Yom Kippur War. Check it out. What Friedman shows is really how profoundly that experience marked Cohen's career, his identity, his creativity, who he was to become. So why am I telling you this story about Leonard Cohen tonight? Because I think Cohen, that high priest of poetry, is teaching us something through that song and this song's story. A couple lessons here. The first is that he wrote a modern prayer for the broken-hearted seeker within every one of us. And it's more than just a prayer. He reimagines our moral obligation, and he reimagines the name of the most sacred, the name of the divine. Cohen's remorse at feeling relief for that one moment, that those wounded might be Egyptians and not Israelis, that one moment of reckoning, of atonement, of truth. His remorse at feeling relief as a demand for post-tribal moral ground, for reimagining our loyalties to humanity, not just to the people that we come from, and that's hard. He demands of us a sense of universal humanity and humanism, and that's not easy. Yes, there are wars and there are enemies. There's me and you and this and that. But the poet and the prophet and the high priest wants us to go beyond this heritage of hurt, beyond the strong lines in the sand that we inherited, to find a new and stronger common ground. What do we keep? What do we change? What do we do with our heritage, with all its gifts and challenges? Our old fears and our tools for love. How do we know what or who and how to trust as our core truths right here, right now, keep shifting? I think that's one thing that Cohen is getting at when he takes out that verse but still sings that song, that prayer. The second lesson Cohen teaches us through this song is how to speak to and about God. And yes, my friends, I know that Lab Shul is God optional. We still are. But surely you have noticed on Rosh Hashanah and this evening that we are leaning in and we are asking questions, because if anything we learned during the pandemic, and as the world is getting crazier around us, that we need to hold on to something, and that words that build worlds sometimes get in the way, but sometimes hold the key to what we need to not get lost and to find sustenance and nourishment in battlefields or when we are alone at home. Cohen reimagines the relationship with the divine. He calls on Father in the first verse, yes. But ultimately he imagines God as a lover and the role of religion as the lifelong lesson in how to love. Beyond the binaries of the familiar, to love more even when it's hard. His song becomes an invitation for us tonight, an invocation to reclaim religion on our terms, to reimagine and to rename the source of everything beyond the tired and the toxic and the troubled titles that for so many of us are more baggage than blessing. Because for many of us, the religious language that we inherited has become obscure and irrelevant. In the West, religious affiliation is on the decline, and that's not news anymore. I don't think it's on the decline just because the fact that faith has turned tired or irrelevant for many, while still meaningful for many as well. I think the biggest reason religion is in trouble is that many of us are smart enough to know better than to toe the old party line. I think we know that when old religions refuse to change on whatever issue of the preservation of what once was, more and more of us refuse to buy into that version of religion and that old God. It just feels false. The more religion is identified with nationalist agendas, the more religion is identified with bigoted, racist dogma, the less we, who care about humanity, want any part of it. And that is happening a lot, now more than ever. That is at the root of the conflict in the streets right now in Israel and this past week in New York, with a protest to defend Israeli democracy. What's at root is a fight over Judaism. Is it supremacist? Is it male-dominated? Is it an occupationist Judaism? Is it about me better than you? Or can it be the liberal democratic Judaism so many of us believe in and dream about? Just tonight in Tel Aviv, a Yom Kippur prayer was interrupted in the main square in Dizengoff because a religious Orthodox group wanted to have it with a mechitza, with a partition, dividing men and women in the public place of Tel Aviv. The Supreme Court said, no, you cannot have in the public place in Tel Aviv a separation between men and women. That can happen in the private sector, in a synagogue, not in the main square. They insisted, protested. It turned ugly. The prayer was stopped. I'm on both sides of this. But it breaks my heart. In the name of so much othering, the most sacred is disrupted, even on this night. And that's a big part of what's happening in this country. The American political scene is fueled by fear-based supremacy, religious narratives that most of us just tune out. But it is at the core of what is happening politically. Many of us show here once, twice, a few times a year. And we think of God when crisis happens, illness, death, the pain in our heart. But the majority of modern Jews' religion is at best a cultural question mark, right next to the bagels. And so it falls on us, on those who are here tonight, but not just tonight. Those of us here who are trying something new. Go courage, creativity. Those of us who do believe that there is merit to spiritual life imbued with ethical responsibility and the wisdom of communal care to reimagine and to rebrand our theology. And yes, my friends, as Shira said, to rebrand God. That's what we're here to do. We're here to fight back against Jewish supremacy. We've always done so. That's what being Hebrew is all about. To be Hebrew Ivri is to be a boundary crosser, to go from here to there, not be stuck in one way, Yahweh, the way things were. No, we shift, we cross, we trouble, and we question, and we try. to shift directions and evolve, to wrestle with the truth with our fast-changing lives. So in an effort to continue labbing and explore the spiritual language that feels authentic, we indeed are trying this year, and it might be weird, to rebrand God. There's no one way of doing so. We're offering just one version, just a suggestion, and we're excited to do so with a theme that we introduced this year, HAVAYA, Everpresence, taking the four-letter name of God, Yahweh, that is old and ancient, and scrambling the letters, creating a new password that was already invented, excavated by our ancients, and we're bringing it back. We want to restore trust. Ra'anan Gabriel, who is here tonight, our artist in residence, designed this beautiful logo in Hebrew and English. You can see more of his art outside in the gallery. He'll be speaking here tomorrow afternoon about his genius ways of creating iconography out of words and letters and art so we can sensory feel this power of language, because words build worlds. And while we were working with Ra'anan on HAVAYA, the Hebrew name for God, and we came up with this word Everpresence, that is a new word, we made it up. We thought about how most of us relate to the divine, and that's with the English Christian concept, G-O-D, God. Oh my God, how often do you say that? How often do you not even notice that you say that? The one we do and do not trust. So, it's in your pocket right now. Ever wonder where and when and why our money is infused with God? And how did "In God We Trust" made it to our money? Here's that tiny historical reference. Okay. 1865, March 3rd, Congress passes the final bill that Abraham Lincoln would sign before being assassinated 6 weeks later. This was a successful campaign of a Christian minister from West Virginia who was alarmed by the divisions sown by the Civil War. And so the coins get "In God We Trust" as an attempt to create unity. Fast forward, 1955, Billy Graham, an evangelical minister that many of you heard of, the Pied Piper of piety and patriotism, who convinced President Eisenhower during the escalating years of the Cold War with the godless communists to get "In God We Trust" into the hard core of American civil life. In 1955, it makes it into the Pledge of Allegiance. Wasn't always there. In 1956, it becomes the U.S. motto. And in 1957, it makes it onto the dollar bill, where it still proudly and problematically resides. Separation of religion and state? What does it mean to you, my friends, that "In God We Trust" is in our pocket all the time? What does it do to our relationship with mystery, with the divine, whoever and whatever you believe in? In what do we trust? It's called ceremonial deism, a term introduced in 1962 to designate governmental religious references and practices deemed to be mere cultural rituals and not inherently religious because of long customary usage. I'm not sure I understood that, but that's from the official U.S. website about why "In God We Trust" is in your pocket right now. This God in trust stuff is complicated, which is why 40 days ago we decided to invite you, our community, to reimagine with us the second word in the U.S. motto. How would you replace, rebrand, reimagine this word, God? So Naomi helped me lead this campaign together with Jackie. Many of you responded to the question, "In do you trust?" So I want us to watch this quick version of 40-plus attempts. And you can create your own outside tonight and tomorrow. Love came up a lot, and creativity, and actions, and community, and earth, and breath, compassion, divine inner being, intuition, love again, and family, and growth. Those are Schrodinger's cat and us, and flow, and showing up, and wisdom, curiosity, mycelium, inspiration, dogs, Gen Z, awareness, holy time, impermanence, community, the center of the something, loving kindness, gratitude, our voice, each other, loving awareness, earth, and love. Just 40 plus attempts to answer the question, how do we reimagine, rebrand the divine in our lives now? In what, in who do we trust? We want new passwords, new code words, new safe words, new power words to the sacred. A sense of being that speaks our languages, our longings, our truths, our doubts. We want an honest vocabulary that values our complex and fast-changing reality. We want to restore trust. So yes, tonight and in the days and this year ahead, we are going to play with this concept. So stay tuned. We want to reimagine together our sacred union and connection to each other on this Yom Kippur and all year round. We want to take on the task of lovers. Lovers of life. Lovers of each other. Lovers of self. We want to defend this place and not be captive audiences of somebody else's religious agenda. It's on us. We're going to take on the task of lovers just like Leonard Cohen did, maybe a little better because he occasionally messed that up. But we will try again and again, as he wrote in this song called Lover, Lover, Lover. Let me start again, I cried. Please let me start again. That's what we can do. That's what we're here to do tonight. So as I wrap these words tonight, I want to invite us to lean into this invitation, to reimagine and to rebrand the divine. This might feel uncomfortable, maybe even heretical. It might feel irrelevant, or what the heck am I talking about? But I believe that at this moment, we are privileged and called upon to reimagine our theology, to come up with useful concepts and words that will help us build the worlds we want to live in and hand over to the next generations. It's on us. I want to invite up here a lover and a friend and a teacher and a bard to sing with us the song that Leonard Cohen gave us. David Broza, who's been noodling in the back, to help us sing this hymn to end all wars and lean as often as we can into love. Habibi, Baruch haba. Tfaddal.
I asked my father, I said, Father, change my name. The one I'm using now, it's covered up with fear, with filth, cowardice, and shame. Said, lover, 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 come back to me. Said, lover, 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 He said, I locked you in this body. I meant it as a kind of trial. You can use it for a weapon or to make some woman smile. Yes, lover, 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 come back to me. Lover, 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 come back to me. He said, I locked you in this body. Oh, then let me start again, I cried. Please let me start again. I want a face that's fair this time. I want a spirit that is calm. Yes, lover, 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 come back to me. Lover, 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 come back to me. I went down to the desert to help my brothers fight. I knew that they were wrong. I knew that they were wrong. I knew that they were right. That's wrong. But bones must stand up straight and walk, and blood must move around. And men go making ugly lines across the holy ground. Lover, 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 come back to me. I said, lover, 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 come back to me. Let's go on and on and on. I said, lover, 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 come back to me. Oh, lover, 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 come back to me. Let's hear everybody just one more time. And lover, 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 come back to me one last time. Everybody feel it. Lover, 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 come back to me. Well, thank you, Leonard Cohen. Before I resume and continue with a prayer with everyone, just to remind everyone that this establishment that I have been coming and frequenting with for, I believe, right from the start of it, has grown and become such a magnificent place to let one flow with prayers on these days, make one feel comfortable if you're not comfortable with other ways of praying, be whatever it is. And so I want to thank Rabbi Amichai and this whole crew and amazing people around, and I want to remind everyone that if you can think about it in the next few days, perhaps to contribute for the continuation of this amazing establishment. And these would be my thanks. As my thanks, we also, of course, all contribute. And so, Chatima Tova.
Habibi. Thank you, David, for joining us to remind us that lover is a prayer, and that you too can become lovers by helping us do so all year long. We don't always get a rock star to make our Yom Kippur pitch, so thank you. And we in Grand Lab Shul style, my fault, are running a teeny bit late. So we ask you for your indulgence so that our fantastic program that is going to begin a little later than 9:15 with 4 amazing speakers about what it is that we are delving into will begin and hopefully not run too late. Thank you for your patience. I'm going to ask us to rise as we take this metaphor of lover into Avinu Malkeinu, our ancestor, our sovereign power. What is it like to open the doors to what we need the most tonight?
Dear Marika and Bex, holy keepers of our Siddur, our prayers, would you please advance us 2 pages in our prayer book? There we are. Thank you. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu v'aneinu, ki ein banu ma'asim. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed, v'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed, v'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu. Aleinu, 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 Aleinu,
Aleinu. It's on us. It's on us to be anti-racist and to let that show through our words and our actions. My name is John Adam Ross, and I'm a member of READ, Lab Shul's Racial Equity Action Delegation. We are hard at work behind the scenes, helping each other and our community's leaders examine how our systems and culture could be perpetuating racism and brainstorm strategies for proactively addressing racism in our community and as a community.
Being anti-racist requires courage to look deeply at the ways whiteness shows up in ourselves, to oppose those whose power comes at the expense of others, to step outside of a norm that has existed too long, and to accept personal responsibility to stand for justice.
But we don't have to muster this courage alone. On Yom Kippur, we don't say ashamti or bagadti. We don't atone in the singular. We atone in the plural, ashamnu. And we can take action in the plural too. That's the work of Reed.
Last week, we collected commitments from our community members to talk to our loved ones about racism, to do our homework, to name and fight oppression when we see it, to push ourselves out of our comfort zones. Please join us in this work. If you're here, please stop by the Reed table in the lobby where you'll find QR codes with links to resources. Have the chance to make your own commitment to take action around racial justice in the year ahead and learn more about how you can get involved with our team.
Aleinu.
Thank you, Aleinu team. Thank you.
Friends, just, well, we're getting to be just over 9 years ago. Amichai lost his father and began what became a critical resource for this community that started from his own need to gather around and just blossomed into an incredible community of care. I myself, when I lost both of my parents, really dug into utilizing this community for my own grief support, to say Kaddish every week. And it's co-led by many members of our ritual team and sacred volunteers. Our Kaddish Club, we're so grateful to gather around this country, providing support and love and a circle of care. I see many faces that I recognize from our Zoom rooms and many people I saw online earlier that are part of this community. And together, we're going to lift up the memories of our loved one and recite Kaddish, a prayer for peace. So I know we're already risen right now. I'm just going to invite you to even find a different way of rising as you are standing or you're rising in your seat, to remember relatives and friends. Maybe a breath in. And to breathe in and remember acknowledging the casualties of natural disasters, of violence, war, and disease. And maybe an exhale. And to remember those who may have passed recently or those long ago. I know we have many members of our community who just had recent losses. And so maybe an inhale and support and an exhale for them as well too. On this eve of memory and meaning, we stand together, risen, in whatever way we can to remember. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divrach chiluteh ve'amlich malchuteh, b'chayechon u'vyomechon u'b'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'bizman kariv v'imru, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lemei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal Shmei Dekudesha B'richu. Le'ela u'le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabbah min Shemaya v'chaim tovim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru. Amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom
Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru. Amen.
Shana Tova. I'm Sarah Sokolic, one of Lab Shul's co-founders and the organization's executive director. Just a few words before we end. As a former two-sport college athlete, I make a good deal of sports references in my leadership of our team, many of which flutter right past our glorious team of artists and creatives. And the mix of polite yet perplexed smiles always makes for a good laugh, right? To be fair, they do get many of them, hitting a home run, dropping the ball, passing the baton, and the importance of having bench strength, right, Shira? Bench strength. Build your bench. We got to build our bench. Exactly. The one I've been thinking about lately, because of the season, I guess, is blocking and tackling. Nice. It's a football reference. It's a football season. Go Big Blue. In football, the offensive line blocks defenders to keep them away from the quarterback and clear the lanes for the running backs. And the defense tackles opponents head-on who encroach upon their territory trying to score. Essentially, a leader ensures that obstacles are removed and challenges are addressed head-on to pave the way for their team's success. At 10 years old, Lab Shul's team includes 10 year-round professional staff, more than a dozen interns and program and production contractors, about 30 raising the bar mitzvah and lab junior trainers and educators, more than 100 volunteers, and countless artists and ritualists from around the world. I'm honored and humbled to be surrounded by such tremendous talent across so many disciplines on a regular basis. And as we head into 5784, my personal leadership goal this year is to do my best blocking and tackling so that this extended team of MVPs can do what they do best on behalf of our entire sacred community each and every day. And now let's thank some of these MVPs. So we express our profound thanks to the composers whose works deeply touch our souls. What's happening?
We're with you. We're with you.
Sarah,
Okay.
in front of you.
I can't see anything. Okay. Yes, so to the composers and to the musicians and the artists that bring these compositions to life, we're super grateful for all of the music and the beauty that you bring to life here in this space. We can't underscore enough the dedication and hard work of our production team, who operates tirelessly in the background. They stand as the foundational support of our Days of Awe. And behind all of the names on each of these on the screens in each slide are so many more hands and hearts. So our appreciation is unbounded. And we want to give a special thanks to our hosts here at Tribeca Performing Arts Center and BMCC. We want to thank our committed volunteers who give generously of their time. Your role is truly indispensable. Volunteers, please just raise your hands if you were volunteering here today. They were wearing the orange tags. Yay, thank you. And a deep recognition to all of our board members and all of our year-round teams and committees that make this thing run. And there's lots more opportunity. We've just reorganized, so if you're interested and see that you have some time and availability and will to help out, there's space and there's a place. And we'll clear the lanes for you to come forward and help us out. Okay, let's talk a little bit about some housekeeping before we move on. Reserved ticket holders for tomorrow, please know a couple of things. By 10:30, our ritual begins tomorrow at 9. By 10:30, if these seats have not been claimed by a personal item, they will be given up to others. We want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to feel close to the ritual team. The ritual team needs to feel close to you. So please know that by 10:30, the seats will be given up. And just know that you may not be in the same seats tomorrow as you are today. And tonight, we have the 4D program following immediately. Amichai spoke a little bit about that, an amazing group of speakers that are going to bring Everpresence to our presence this evening in so many different ways.
We're going to start at 9:30.
We're going to start at 9:30, so stick around. You can certainly people will feel free to leave if they have other things or want to go home, but there will be space to move down. So there'll be some time to reset the stage, and then people can move down. The schedule for tomorrow is on our website, and through the QR codes that are on the signs outside, you can get our online playbill with our schedule. Again, we start at 9 a.m. here. The kids programming starts both in the tents for the older kids. The younger kids, the Play Lab kids ages 0 to 7, are being moved into Theater 3 at BMCC. There's a door behind the tents into the BMCC building. We're going to be in Theater 3, so that group of kids can just be a little bit more spread out, a little more comfortable. But the older kids will be in the 2 tents outside with our educators. So that's important to know. I want to say one thing about our breakfast tomorrow. We are sold out. Thank you to everyone who signed up early. Our community doesn't always do that, but everyone was excited about a breakfast at City Vineyard. Thank you, Michael and Sarah, for hosting us as you always do. Amichai, I just wanted to say one thing. You said a few times tonight that words build worlds. Words build worlds. And I love that so much, and it just made me think of words build worlds, and if you build it, blank will come. If you build it. Like
Maybe
sports
that's next
thing.
to your
I'm just saying, that was good. We didn't even plan that. Anyway,
Sarah
Gemar Chatzi
Sakalik, everybody. Thank you.
I think that was it.
Friends, we're going to begin maybe before 9:30, but this is a very exciting program. So please stick around, folks online as well. I just want to ask sincerely, we're starting at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. I know you are not late for therapy. And I know you hate being late to the movies or the opera. We begin at 9 a.m. It's disruptive afterwards. Please do your best to be at 9 a.m. It's a long day. We're here for it. Thank you, lovers. Good night. Shana Tova.
Come back to me. Listen,
Lover, 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 come back to me. Lover, 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 come back to me. Daoud. Lover, 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 come back to me.
Then let me start again. Please let me start again. Then let me start again. Please let me start again. Come back to me.
תשאר אפילו רק קצת, כן. אתה מכיר את דניאל
Lover, come back to me.
Daniel, David, Michael. Sorry, guys.
Lover, come back to me.
We're gonna cut. Yeah, of course. conversing, please do so outside. We're going to begin in literally a minute. So thank you so much, and come join us here in front. Susanna, you're going to love this. But then there's nobody in the front, and we're all going to feel like losers. Come on. Do I have to guilt you about sitting in front? With a mic on? I'm doing it. Shana Tova.
This is beautiful. Yes, Jonathan.
Welcome back, Shana Tova. Thank you very much. There you go. Good people are sitting in the front. Thank you for modeling, Aliza. Woohoo! Welcome back. All right, friends, we're going to begin in just a moment. Please, grab your seats. Leave in peace. Stay for a while or more. We're going to be done by 10:30. Folks still joining us online, we hope you got a chance to stretch. Yishai, you're comfortable? Welcome back. Okay.
The scene. A table set for 8. The room glowing in amber light. The lighting remind me of childhood, hours spent reading under blankets with a dull flashlight, evoking the womb, the cave, the tree fort, the campfire. It was quiet for only a moment before Cynthia, the youngest in the group, gave a spirited shout-out. I want to raise my glass to Willabelle Sutton, my grandmother, the toughest bitch who ever lived. Everyone laughed and clinked their glasses. Cynthia then grew more earnest, carefully weighing her words. The inky gravity that clings to words we speak about the dead. She told us how her grandfather, Bubba, wooed the difficult Willabelle. He loved her more than anything in the world. Night after night during their courtship, he made her dinner. Each night, once she'd eaten, he silently rolled a single pearl across the table to her. She placed each pearl on a string around her neck so that by the 40th night, she had a full necklace. And that's when he proposed. As Cynthia spoke about missing her grandmother, she talked about the fiery advocate of equal rights and protections for the poor. But she also said, I miss being loved by someone with the fierceness that Biddy loved me. She was my champion, singing my praises and cheering me on as I navigated through life until she didn't have a voice. Cynthia captured the intersection of grief, humor, joy, pain, loss, personal history, and the desire to connect deeply with others that emerges at these dinners. Our little dinner table for 8 was no longer in Seattle. It was no longer 2016. We were in the timeless space of human story. We could hear the pearls rolling across the table. We even had a sense that Willabelle had pulled up a chair and joined us. It wasn't just happenstance that Cynthia spoke first. She was eager to talk about her grandmother and had been for a very long time. our party heard how Cynthia's mom, in her grief at losing her own mother, had refused to speak about the death, hammering down no trespassing signs around the topic of Willowbell's life ending. Cynthia couldn't access her grief, and so it made the beauty and poetry of her grandmother's life off limits as well. We have to fully grieve someone to fall back in love with them. It is in the acceptance of their loss that we can regain the enchantment of their gifts to us. We continued around the table, each in turn toasting and lighting a candle. Everyone was fully present. No one checks their phones during a conversation about death. A group of strangers had just shared something from the very center of their hearts, and a profound sense of human connection had been created in a sum total of 15 minutes. Milan Kundera once said, "What terrifies us about death is not the loss of the future, but the loss of the past. Forgetting is a form of death ever present within life." Now I ask all of you in the audience to close your eyes with me. I want you to picture a person who has died, a person that you love deeply, and a person who is no longer alive. Once you have that person present in your mind's eye, visualize a resplendent dinner party. Food is just coming out of the oven, and the smells are overwhelmingly beautiful. The table includes this person who is no longer with us, and it is also filled with a gaggle of their favorite humans. Laughter and mirth are in the air, and we are now just sitting down to a dinner that will be filled with story and humor. While your eyes are still closed, I ask that you speak their names out into the room, out into the night. It's okay if you speak over each other. You can whisper or speak loudly. Let's hear their names. You can keep speaking their names. Thank you. So we know that which we practice grows stronger. We are a death-denying culture. What does practicing dying give us? What does it mean to practice dying? It can look like telling our grief story, or fasting, thinking about what we want to be remembered for, or facing the fears we have about our death. The way we approach death in modern times can be described as eating unripe fruit. The fruit is bitter, tannic, abrasive, and without nourishment. If we are at the unexpected receiving end of death, without having developed a relationship with grief and our own mortality, it will more often than not be an experience of pain, chaos, and a fog of suffering. If we let the fruit of that tree receive sunlight and the warmth of our attention, if we courageously choose to face our mortality, the range of experience available to us becomes rich with possibilities. It can nourish us. There is vitality, purpose, depth of meaning, a reduction in anxiety, and extraordinary human connection available to us. And there is an unexpected entity at the very center of this exploration. It is the idea of home. The curious thing about home is that it is equal parts where we come from, where we are, and where we are going. Where we come from, before the flash of light sparked in our mother's wombs, is the place on the other side of life, the unknowable. Where we come from is on the other side of the veil we know as death. To feel truly at home in this universe, there is a reckoning we have to undergo. The good news is that much of that journey you have already undertaken. You are here on a night such as this. You are here on a night such as this. Daniel Bernard Remain.
Michael Hebb, Daniel Bernard Remain, Libby Lynn Kinski, And we're all sitting at this table together, having a death over dinner, drugs over dinner, divine over dinner, and democracy over dinner conversation with no dinner and no drugs. I mean, you do what you need to do. I'm really honored and so grateful to the two of you for joining forces and leading us in this heartfelt conversation that we will start with in a moment about death and more about Michael's project. In a moment, my dear friend Libby across the table. It's a funny situation. And the reason we're doing this 4D conversation, life in 4D, is because as we thought about this year's theme, this Everpresence thing, we thought about that it is a metaphor for so many delicate and difficult, fragile, sacred topics that we don't usually focus on. And so I immediately thought about my friend Michael, whose amazing project, Death Over Dinner, I was exposed to many years ago, and through the Reboot Network that's represented here and that Michael, Libby, and I are part of, created a Jewish version of Death Over Dinner. How to have the difficult conversations about these super important topics that we will all face. Out of Death Over Dinner, created the ongoing versions of talking about drugs over dinner. What is it about psychedelics and substances, about the positive side of medicine and the dark side of what it is that we search for and look for in today's increasing awareness around the access. And democracy is what's on our mind in so many ways, in more than we have thought. These past months and years in this country, in Israel, all over the world. And then the divine is what's at the core of this invitation to reimagine, rebrand God and ever-present. What do substances and medicine, the divine, democracy, and death have to tell each other? Throughout this year, we're going to have these conversations. We're going to have a conversation over Sabbath, dinner over death, and about democracy and divine and drugs throughout the year. Tonight is just like the micro of the macro, the appetizer.
The seed.
The seed, if you'd like, to get us wrestling with these issues. So thank you for staying late. We're going to truncate just a teeny bit, but we're all going to have a chance to have these conversations. Begin them tonight on this night of atonement and continue them all year round. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And I'm going to hand it over to you, Michael and Daniel, to lead us into the first round.
Well, Daniel and I met 25 years ago, in the fall, I think. So right about this time, and we grabbed a hold of each other, like we knew we were brothers, and we never let go. And for about all of those 25 years, we've been trying to figure out how to work together. Actually, somebody who's here in the audience, Sarah, was there that night that we met. And we've been talking about how are we going to work together, and specifically how are we going to create an experience, in some ways a lot like Yom Kippur, but where people in a theatrical arena could have a reckoning with their own mortality. And tonight is the first time that we've staged anything together. So you got the beginning of what will probably become an opera of some kind. So, and so Daniel and I are deep in this work together, thinking about death, thinking about life, thinking about love and experience. Why are you magnetized, Daniel, to this work, specifically around end of life?
First of all, thank you so much for inviting me in and letting me sit with you and be present with you and see you and be seen. I'm mindful of invitation. My good Haitian mother would often remind me, when you enter someone's home, you never come empty-handed. You bring a gift. My father was a big man, full of knowledge and experience, and a garage full of books. And when I was about 7 years old, I found one of them, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, on death and dying. I started, going through the pages, and I wanted to share this book with him. I didn't really know what was going on. But, my father never treated me as a child. In fact, he would say, "You're going to live in the adult world," And it was a kind of a precious relationship. And I think both of my parents set a tone in the home that was always towards truth and justice, equity. And, I'm looking at that sign, Black Lives Matter, and I feel safe, In fact, I feel as though things are familiar. When I was 5 years old, I started playing the violin in a small town called Margate, Florida, in South Florida. My first music teacher was Mr. Miller. If you were the best violinist that year, you did a solo with the orchestra. It was always HaTikva.
Okay, maybe we'll bring that around.
Always HaTikva. That's the first piece I ever played publicly. On a Christmas concert.
Wow.
In South Florida. You can imagine 100 BIPOC children on the stage, 200 BIPOC parents in the audience, and about 300 what we called lovingly senior citizens.
All singing Hatikva.
Well,
and you playing it. Well,
Mr. Miller would surprise the audience each year. This year, playing Hatikva for us, we're going to have little Danny Romaine. And I made my way to the front of the stage, a big afro back then. And I started playing Hatikva, and I looked out into the audience for help, and there she was, my mother. And she did what every great or loving Haitian mother does. She started to cry. And next to her was an older white woman who saw my mother. She started to cry. And next to that white woman was an older gentleman, and pretty soon there was perspiration and tears. I thought I must be really good. Dug in a little more. But that man, that woman, they're gone, but I think about them. I'm talking about them. By the way, I'm still playing Hatikva. And I think about collaboration and invitation. And I thought about the truth of what you said. I'm a professor at a university. You said things tonight that I cannot say. Where does truth exist? Is it in the imagination? For me, my faith is in music, right? The evidence of a soul lies in my sense of a conscious, when I feel guilty or not. You told a beautiful story about this sense of guilt, even reparations. And I owe so much to Michael because it's been invitation after invitation. If you look at Michael and I, the differences are easy to discern, but what do we share in common? And I'm 52 years old, and I feel like I am being reborn. My father died on April 22nd at 1:07 p.m. in 2013. He started a journey. We still talk. We're in conversation. He had such a sense of humor. He would be saying something right now. He'd be heckling me, right? Pulling focus. But I think tonight, what I call underscoring important words, a text that Michael composed, there is something about artists. I would say it this way. When our politicians and pundits fail us, and they often do, artists have often led the way. Right? So I know we're supposed to applaud or not, but I would just say simply that I'm looking to Michael. I've always looked to Michael in these last 25 years for invitation, for knowledge, for new experiences, for an opportunity to share my faith, my music, to learn, to be humble, but also to understand the role I have to play. I felt a calling tonight. I felt as though it was a loving challenge, an invitation to actually do something, to not be lax, but to be on the front lines of something that I think, well, division is everywhere. What do we share in common? So I really thank you for this stage and this opportunity, and I think our work, Michael, is probably going to center on this notion of words and music and ideas, and a kind of a reckless but focused ambition where all voices can and should matter. As an artist, I like to say that the stage may be the last bastion of democracy, where all voices can and should be heard, but are not always.
Wow.
And to your question, Amihai, why, to some extent, why to talk about death? I mean, I'm preaching to a bit of the choir tonight, and I have a question for all of you to turn to each other and to spark a little bit of a conversation. And this is also for folks that are at home. But before we get into that, briefly, I was thinking today, and I asked myself this question, because I've dedicated the last 10 years of my life to end of life, to death, to grief, to loss. And I keep asking myself, why do I do it? And what came to me today was, it's really about inviting people into a relationship with death. We have a relationship with death, whether we decide to embrace it, acknowledge it, honor it, or not. It is part of you. In the same way that we have a relationship with nature. Many of us, if we don't embrace that relationship, deepen that relationship with nature, we're quite scared in nature. Right? If we're deep in the wilderness and we hear a twig snap, we might get scared. I had a very profound encounter with a bear who was about 25 feet from me the other day. He's terrified of bears. The thing is, it was scary, but I've developed a relationship with nature. If I didn't have a relationship with nature, lightning and thunder would be one of the most terrifying things I could ever encounter, and has been for some people. So that's what we're doing. The thing is, there's richness there, there's opportunity there, but it also requires respect. The idea is to develop the relationship in the same way we do with these things that are inevitable and powerful and also cruel in many ways. I'm not like a death is great sort of guy. I hate this idea of putting good and death together in a sentence. Not into it. But to the question for you, and the question that I'd love for you to turn to somebody who's next to you is this. Certainly death has taken things from you. What gifts have death or grief given you? Are there any gifts that loss or your own encounter with mortality have given you? So we're going to do 3 minutes where we'll talk to each other, and then we're going to switch. And I'm going to let you know when the 3 minutes are up so that you know to switch. So you just go full-throated, and we'll keep the clock. So start now. And if you're at home, you can journal this if you're not with somebody. Go ahead and open your notes on your computer.
Right.
Can you mute me?
Can you guys mute us for the next...
Now you.
Oh, wow. I mean, let's call it a wrap.
There you go. You're back on.
I'm back
And
on.
we're on.
Wow, incredible job
We've lots
to
to
our
talk about.
production crew. Amahai, back to you.
Wow. So I don't know about y'all. That was just not even a taster. Daniel and I just began exploring what does it mean for us to have gifts from encounters with grief. And like I said, tonight is really just a taste of what will be a program in the fall where we will spend an entire night thinking about the gifts from our encounter with death. At a death over dinner, there will be food. And
There still won't be drugs at the drugs over dinner. Well, all right.
I'm not saying nothing. Anyway, we'll get there, one thing at a time. But tonight is really just for us to see how those intersect. So we already saw the fascinating intersection of how HaTikva showed up. And Libby and I were like, whoa. So Libby is the vice president of the New Israel Fund, one of the feistiest, smartest fighters for just democracy and human rights in Israel and beyond, and a dear friend and colleague. So when we wanted to bring democracy to our table, I immediately thought of you. So give us some reactions about death and HaTikva, and then we'll go deeper into drugs and go back to democracy and be done by 10:30, maybe. No, we have to.
Rava, you're killing me here. I came with notes, but it's a Michael Heb evening, so I'm abandoning them. I actually want to tell a short story because I was thinking a lot about Leonard Cohen today because somebody else posted on Facebook a picture of him playing music for the soldiers in Sinai. And in 2009, he came back to Israel-Palestine again. He had announced a big concert in Tel Aviv, and then there was a lot of disappointment and rage from Palestinians and allies around the world that he would play there. And he came because it was really important to him, as you talked about. Israel was important to him spiritually and in a lot of other ways. And he was looking for how to do it ethically, how to be there. And I was, at the time, just starting out my career. I was working in a strategy consulting office in Tel Aviv that was really crazy. We would get all sorts of crazy clients through all the time. And we worked with a lot of peace-building groups and human rights groups. We did a lot of work with groups that were working on behalf of Palestinians. And somehow Leonard Cohen's management found us. And they were in this sort of political crisis of how to handle the concert and the trip. And our job was to take Leonard Cohen around for a couple of days and introduce him to initiatives and organizations that were working towards peace or towards human rights for Palestinians. And we did that. And he was really, really quiet and private and didn't speak very much at all. So it was really hard to read like what was happening for him. And then the concert was taking place at the ancient amphitheater in Caesarea, where David has probably played at least 1,000 times. It's a really magical venue, right on the water, and it's really ancient, and the acoustics are really echoey and rich. And Leonard Cohen was playing, and then the one time where he sort of broke from just the music to say something, he said, "Today I met a group of bereaved parents, Israelis and Palestinians, who have lost their closest loved ones to the conflict, and they find a way to reach out from their own pain and their own grief and see the heart of the other. And I'd like to dedicate this next song to that ability." And then he sang Hallelujah.
Oh.
Yeah, it was like, I will never, ever forget that moment. And I sort of felt the serendipity and cosmicness of you, Rabbi Amichai, My Nation Lives, in bringing Leonard Cohen into this space tonight, as I was also thinking about this conversation. And I talk about Israel-Palestine a lot, not always connecting it to death over dinner and psychedelics and divinity. But that story really sprung into my head today, and so I wanted to share it.
Thank you. So we did plan a very specific outline for tonight, and we're veering off because that's just how it is. But I'm hoping that you're getting the interconnectedness of these questions, where death generates awareness, pain, growth, service. The questions we'd rather not have, the conversations we'd rather avoid, but once we have them, it opens us to understanding the interconnectedness of life in its full force, from Leonard Cohen and the Hallelujah chorus in the context of this conflict, to the story you told me about how your mother got you to go sing in hospitals, and here you are as a major artist and violinist and teacher today, and how death over dinner led to these other dinners, including drugs and including democracy and soon the divine. So when we thought about tonight, we wanted to delve into the interconnectedness, how in some way democracy is about everyone has a place at the table, and how in some way substances such as sacred medicine sort of lower the ego stance and invite us to a deeper conversation. Is Caroline Rothstein here? Hey. So I know you were part of the drugs over dinner, which is like, yo. So more about that, but that's it sparked my interest as part of this whole project. So what we wanted to do tonight, other than do drugs together, which, I mean, talk to me later, we could, but not tonight. That'll be a fun Yom Kippur. Is my board chair still here? No? Marnie, don't tell John. But instead, oh, but Sarah's here. Okay, I'm busted. We did invite an amazing teacher and friend who's a dear friend of Michael's. So any of you who knows anything about the psychedelic revolution knows the names Paul Stamets, who's really the mycelial mystic, and other crazy titles. So,
and he wanted to talk to us because of his interest in divinity.
Yeah.
And he also revealed that he has Jewish heritage
Yes,
on
and
our,
we're
on our
impressed.
call with him.
Yes, yes, I know. I was sort of not an surprise. So Paul is not with us tonight, but he graciously met with us online to shoot a quick video and share some of his thoughts about these questions of the interconnectedness between death, democracy, divinity, and his favorite topic, mushrooms. So,
should we roll it?
Let's roll it, and then we'll talk about it, and then we'll go back to democracy. If you guys...
Well, let me preface this by first acknowledging I'm on the unceded territories of the Kalus indigenous people in a remote island in British Columbia. I literally live, on this island and on that in the background there. So the first thing that comes to mind in drugs and divinity is that when you classically think of drugs, it has so burdened with so many unfortunate stories, reputation, etc. But so let's sort of disambiguate this. Let's go back to spiritual plants. We're the source of many drugs. But rather than taking a pill and having a drug, whatever it is, from an antibiotic to a psychedelic, our ancestors were deeply in touch with nature. And as they knew intimately the plant species, the animals, surprisingly, they did not know a lot about mushrooms. And the reason being is that plants and animals are on your event horizon, your view horizon all the time. But mushrooms pop up and disappear, and they may not come up for another year. What were those? You had such a limited frequency and duration of contact that the experiential knowledge of mushrooms was very limited to the cognoscenti. Very few mycologists or experts within any clan knew how to properly identify mushrooms. And some can kill you, some can feed you, some can heal you, some can send you on a spiritual journey. But that which is so powerful but unfamiliar and infrequently encountered is oftentimes looked upon with suspicion or fear. So when you say drugs and the divine, to me, it's the spiritual path that we walk through nature. And my expertise in mycology, every time I go out with someone and I show them mushrooms, they are now have entered into a new, like, invisible landscape. And so many people tell me, why didn't I notice these before? And then when you go to the magical mushrooms, the psilocybin containing mushrooms, which are very, very rare, and when they find those, they're part of a quest, a journey, a pilgrimage, you might say. And now they're intimately in contact with nature, and they have an experience and a relationship with the substance that they're going to ingest. Not buying it from a drugstore, not buying it from a dealer in the underground. You are part of the quest, and your journey ties you in. And when you understand that these mycelial networks are these vast intelligent membranes that you walk upon, and these sudden fruits appear, you feel much more deeply in contact with the organism that then communicates with you through psilocybin, these experiences, the wonders of nature, the enormity of the universality of consciousness that you're tapped into. So to me, it's much more important, or equally as important, that people have the context that the journey that they take in order to have a magic mushroom is not only the psilocybin, the drug, but the thousands of ancestors that preceded us, that were persecuted, that died, that were subjugated because of dominant religions, or war, or disease. The fact that we have this knowledge at all is really quite remarkable. But now, because of our communities of networks, and our community, my community, other people discovering psilocybin, it just feels like we've achieved the threshold of mass. Mushrooms have become the zeitgeist of our time. Bridging cultures, continents, centuries, bridging religions. And on Yom Kippur, a time for asking for forgiveness and also to understand your better. What are you here in life for? This is your moment in time. What's the message you've learned from your ancestors that you want to communicate to your descendants? I think it's love and forgiveness, kindness, courage, and strength. And those are the 5 goalposts that have steered my life. Well, I think it's a basic civil right that you have the freedom of consciousness, and your ability to take these substances as an exercising of your basic civil human right. No one should control your consciousness. You should be able to have the freedom of consciousness. It should be the number one civil right. So when you speak of what the deeper meaning of life and what this means, I mean, there's several real practical things I just want to mention. We always are seeking a higher authority, a person who's more expert than ourselves. It's just naturally, when you find a person who's more expert in yourselves, you empower them with your trust, your attention, your time, your interest. Of course, you're inflating their ego, and then is the problem. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And what I see, unfortunately, with so many experts is they become intoxicated with a power beyond the limits of their wisdom. And then it becomes exploitive. Now, this is universal, unfortunately. So I always am really pleased when I meet experts, and I follow this myself. When I don't know, I don't know. I tell you I don't know. But when I know, and I have a very good intuition all over my life, that when I sense there is something very big behind this concept, even though language we can articulate with the words that accurately reflect the enormity of the concept, does not impugn the concept. It really speaks to our limitations of being able to communicate using the language tools that we have. What I love about the psilocybin experience, it defies language. So many patients at Johns Hopkins, et cetera, Roland Griffiths said this quite well, is trying to explain the ineffable. Well, isn't that what God is about? Is the ineffable. No matter what our interpretation of God is, it's going to be inadequate because we're imperfect. We don't have the language skills. But when you're thrown into this expanse of universal consciousness through psilocybin, you suddenly realize that we're all one. These psychedelic experiences honor all traditions. The golden rule, treat others as you wish to be treated yourselves. That is something that when we respect other people and reach out the hand of kindness and forgiveness, we bring them into our field of consciousness that we can start talking a language that they understand. But once we put labels on people, we put up artificial divides and barriers to that communication. So what I like about, drugs over dinner, for instance, Michael's thing is no one really knows who each other is. So all those barriers of expectations are lowered. And then you sort of have this really honest conversation without the preconditions or of who you think these people are. So now I'm a little bit left of center, you might say, but some of the best lessons I've learned have been from conservatives. And I'll say this because I'm an innovator. I like innovation. I'm an inventor. I'm a writer. I push the envelope of change. But that's what liberals do. They push the envelopes of change and they take risks. 90, 95, 99% of the time, we fail. But once we have an innovation that's so successful, it becomes acculturated, it becomes conventional wisdom. And then conservatives conserve the conventional wisdom that came really from the edge runners who brought it in, to the commonality and to help, your society. So what I'm getting at is that we need both. We need conservatives to conserve, and we need liberals to push the envelope, because ultimately the two working together becomes a union of opposites And we become this planetary field, this binary, spheroids, in the universe, and we're in orbit around each other, and that orbiting actually helps us. So I'm really feel a lot more optimistic because psilocybin, I think, makes nicer people. Psilocybin, I think, reduces crime, reduces violence, reduces the rhetoric and the politicization. And we can see here in the United States, California just voted 42-11 in the legislature to decriminalize psilocybin, supported by conservatives because of PTSD of veterans. Wow, there's more conservatives in favor of the legalization of psilocybin than there is legalization of marijuana. Go figure. That's an extraordinary metric. But I think we've come to this point in time that we have these different nodes, different nexus points in the matrix of knowledge. No one or other is better or worse, but synaptically, when we have these nodes of crossing, and as a community, and we begin to collaborate, we nourish each other. Because I think evolution is the extension of surplus to our neighbors. Once our needs are taken care of, then what better thing to do to offer to a neighbor, irrespective of their cultural or religious background? That gesture will forever be remembered, where you cross a cultural or religious divide by being kind to people, by being nice and generous, not asking for anything in return. Because in First Nations, in Judaic traditions, and many traditions, gestures of goodwill really show intention and really build a bridge of communication that you can talk about difficult issues later. But beginning that conversation, I think, starts with an act of kindness.
Paul, stand up.
Wow. There's a lot to unpack there.
This is what dinner's going to be like.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll have it with Paul in person. But we've got 15 minutes, so what I want to propose, Libby, I want to throw it to you. I want to echo, to lead us in your thoughts, and maybe a question, or maybe we'll just us, we'll see. I'm really struck by what Paul was talking about, the idea of the right of consciousness. That's like a human right. And that if more of us figured out that right, then the barriers would be lowered of antagonism, and that goes into not just democracy, but a healthy civil society where divinity is in the goodwill beyond differences. So I'm curious where that takes you and where you want to take us. I know you prepared a bunch and we're off the path, but let's find a path.
Thanks for asking, and it's so fun to do this with him and with you guys. First of all, there are sprouting up many groups of Israelis and Palestinians using psilocybin for trauma healing together, and that's been a very rich field. Also, Israel is like a leader in the MEPS project and doing that kind of research. So I want to say that because of what he said. But it's interesting, like the way that he was thinking about democracy and how it relates is a little different from how I was thinking about it. Because I think democracy is a very big word, and it means many different things. So there's all the structural stuff and the social contract between citizen and state and all of those things, which I'm leaving aside because for the purpose of this conversation, I wanted to bring in like a deeper level of what I think magnetizes me to the work of democracy, which is about a layer that's based on an assumption that we actually are all interconnected, that our wellness is interconnected, and that we have the capacity as humans to recognize not only the humanity in one another and in the other, but that we have the capacity to also understand that that humanity is one. And to me, that's like a spiritual underlying point of democracy. That's why we would choose to be in a system of governance that relies on all of us making decisions for the whole together. And I feel compelled to tell another story, or maybe another couple stories. One is a thing that happened this week. So this week I was sick in bed for the whole week. You can hear that I'm still congested, but feeling a little better tonight. But my rabbi, Amichai, along with a lot of New Yorkers, New York City Jews and Israelis, were out protesting because Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was here visiting. And we really think he should go the F home.
Not just go F the home, just
go the F home in all the ways. Not just back to Israel, but yeah.
Just disappear.
And so people were chanting, and there was a lot of slogans, and there were a lot of talking points. And then on Tuesday, Amichai, you went to the anti-occupation bloc protest, which is where I also find my political home. And you were talking about this period of time in the Jewish calendar year. You talked about the shofar being the oldest alarm clock in history, which everyone loved. And then you screamed, and you invited everyone that was at that protest all at once, at the same time, to just scream, like a let it all out scream. And as everybody was screaming, Isaac got in the middle and started the drumming, and then started the chanting, from the river to the sea, we demand democracy. And it was like, in that scream, something was dislodged for people. You could feel it. It's like everybody was sort of chanting before, but something real and big was dislodged by just all at once everybody screaming. That's like, to me, that group interconnectedness that can make really powerful action happen. A second story is a week before that, I was in Israel, and it was the Israeli Academy Awards, the Ophir Awards for film and television. And my friend, Samar Kopti, an actor, was nominated. And she's Arab, Palestinian, Israeli. She's a citizen. And she felt like she couldn't be there on the red carpet because there have been 177 deaths of Arab Israelis, of Palestinian citizens of Israel, just this year. And she was like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to be on the red carpet celebrating when this is going on? She decided to come with a bereaved mother, and she also made a big statement wearing a white dress with bullet holes in it. She didn't win for her performance, but her co-star won for her performance in a different movie. Her name is Raymond Amsalem, and she, in her acceptance speech, said, she looked at the bereaved mother, she asked her to stand up. She said, the Arab citizens, the Arab community, the Palestinian community is not separate from us. When they feel pain, we feel pain. It's our pain too. This is happening to all of us if it's happening to them. And it struck me, and in the context of this conversation, how numbers like that in our space, when we're talking about the conflict and when we're talking about Israeli democracy, 177, like, we should be feeling each one of those deaths like it was our own death to grief. It's so much more than a statistic. And so her statement was incredibly powerful. It was on every front page, but it really did also go back to this interconnectedness. There is no separation here. Shall I ask a question?
Yes, I think we have time for, it's 10:20. We do need to be done by 10:30, and I'd love Daniel to maybe let us lullaby into the end. So we have time for one question.
So the question that I want to ask is also, I think, a question that you ask, Michael, in your dinners, because I got it from your write-up, which is that we know that the personal is political and that the political is personal. And so what about democracy feels personal? And what are your own personal barriers to finding it, to realizing it? And I think we'll do 3 minutes each again. Do we have that time?
Let's
or
do
just
2 minutes each.
2 minutes.
2 minutes each.
Lightning round.
Speed round. So what about democracy feels personal to you? And what are the barriers to you realizing it? you can start.
What about democracy, Phils?
We're at time. So, Rabbi?
So, this is the micro of the macro. This is a taster's menu. We had a short conversation with a question about death. Where is the gift and who is at our table? We heard a little bit from Paul about where divine and drugs or substance, sacred medicine, open up portals to where otherwise we would not have been, perhaps with a perception of interconnectedness. And where you've taken us now, Libby, with the notion of the personal, political, in the pursuit of justice and humanity and care. Danny and I were just talking about his son who's figuring out his journey. And I'm thinking about my own journey as a teenager. I'm here because I felt the keen need for democracy, for me being at the table, where I would have been silenced otherwise. So we want to introduce this as really just an opening. Like I said, and we have the dates, we're going to share them in a bit, and we're excited to work with Reboot and with Life Over Dinner and hopefully with some other organizations to create 4 dinners throughout the year, each one devoted to one of these themes. There'll be way more time for more questions over food to explore these and see how they feed each other. There's an interconnectedness here. We feel these are some of the difficult conversations we don't often have the opportunities to delve into. So I'm excited to do that. I'm so grateful to Michael for being an amazing partner in this, and we're going to examine what this looks like for these 4 dinners and maybe beyond.
Yeah.
And it feels like there's a lot at stake. There's a lot at stake at this moment.
And I just can I say one thing
Yes,
in
please.
closing. I think one thing I'd love, I mean, you'll walk away what you walk away with from tonight. I mean, there's the interconnectedness of these things. We saw it again and again. But also just to get that the table can take this weight. It can take the weight of these conversations. It is one of the places, one of the rare places that can take the weight of differing opinions and differing backgrounds and disagreement. And we overbuild these things. Go stand on your table. Get your whole family to stand on your table. It's overbuilt. It can take the weight. And so that's the invitation.
Amen. I know there's many of us here tonight with a great deal of wisdom and questions. Jack, I'm looking at you with your amazing work on trauma and moral injury and repair and working with psychedelics. Caroline, I know you've given a lot of thought to this. There are more of us here, so I'm excited to co-create this series throughout the year together. And as we leave here tonight, I want to invite you to think of one question from tonight that might be lingering or might be finding its way to your heart and lips and mind. What about what we talked about tonight begins to intrigue you? Yom Kippur is a day of an invitation for reflection, for growth, for dealing with things we don't usually deal with. That has to do with our mortality. That has to do with our invitation to the divine in a deeper way, maybe through substance, maybe not. And certainly invites us at this time to step up for democracy that allows us to be who we are in this country and beyond. So thank you, friends, for this appetizer. Daniel, we're grateful for your presence and for your lullabying us into the end of tonight. And after a few minutes of music, we will gently leave here and see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Thank you, friends. Thank you, friends. Laila Tov, Gmar Tov, good night. Walk gently. We'll be out in the lobby saying good night and see you tomorrow. Thank you so much. Friends online, thank you for joining us from your home.
I won't,
Laila
but
Tov.
I would love to.
I'm also upset.